What's going on, guys? My name is Austin, and today's topic, we're going to talk about what's the best strategy to eat out and maintain some semblance of a good diet. And I got this question this week, and it really made me think, when I heard the question first, it was like, okay, this person's going to go eat out on the weekend. How do they want to approach eating out so that they don't completely ruin their entire week? And the first thought I had, and the first thing I said to the person was, if you eat pretty healthy, and healthy is a vague term, but if you eat a pretty healthy diet throughout the week, eating one time or two times out on the weekend and indulging in something, or just even eating out, isn't going to ruin your entire week of eating healthy. And like I said, once again, I'll reemphasize that eating healthy during the week can be totally different for everyone. Now, for me personally, since I feel like I eat pretty healthy throughout the week because I stick to a pretty strict diet of like certain foods, and I'll tell you what those are. But when I eat very healthy throughout the week, it allows me to feel like I can indulge a little more on the weekend and not feel as bad when I eat things that aren't the healthiest for me, right? And so that was the first thing I told the person was, hey, the better you are during the week, the more healthy foods that you eat during the week, the less you have to even worry about the food you're eating on the weekend once or twice, because it's not going to completely ruin the gains or the efforts you've made throughout the week. Don't feel like you're like completely ruining yourself if you eat like one or two meals that aren't perfect, and nothing's ever perfect. So that's the first thing I said was, number one, eat as healthy as you can during the week so that on the weekend, if the family or friends or your significant other wants to go try something out at a restaurant, you're not like, oh, I can't do that. That's not part of my diet. It's like, no, go enjoy the experience, be with your family, be with your friends. And it just depends on what your goals are. But most people aren't in a situation where you can't go have a lunch or a dinner somewhere where it's not going to be perfect for your lifestyle or diet. So that's the first thing. Eat as healthy as you can during the week. So on the weekend, you don't feel as obligated to be super strict on the weekend. Because what I will say, this is the second thing, is most restaurants aren't really thinking about your overall health when they're serving food to you. They want it to taste really good, and they want it to be, depending on where you're going, they want to make as much money as possible on you and make the food really good. So they're not thinking like, how can I make this food super healthy? And that's where we'll get into, depending on what your diet is like, there are some, depending on what restaurant you go to, there are certain things that you can like stick to when you go to a restaurant that are going to be pretty good. But that's a wide variety of stuff. So it's more of a, how can you stick to a good diet? Well, I would say don't go out to eat super often, because most restaurants don't have your best interest from a health standpoint in mind, because they want it to, like I said, taste really good, and they want to make the most money they can. So your health is kind of low on the totem pole when it comes to that. Now, getting into the actual eating portion, I would say if you're out to eat, things to take into account is you want a protein, a complex carbohydrate, and a vegetable. And a complex carbohydrate can be a vegetable, but the reason why you want those three things when you go out to eat is the protein is really good for your body. You want to, depending on your size and your body type, you want a certain amount of protein each day. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how much protein you need, but protein's important. It's going to fill you up. It's going to be very satiating. A complex carbohydrate like rice and beans or potatoes or quinoa or stuff like that is actually going to fill you up and be a good complex carbohydrate, and is going to digest slower. So a good protein, fish, chicken, meat, some type of stuff, something like that. Then a complex carbohydrate, and then a vegetable. A vegetable, most people know what vegetables are, but if you have a vegetable, it's going to be good fiber. And try to get something, maybe look around. That's what I would say. I'd say look around at the restaurant and see what people are eating and be like, man, that looks good. It has all the three things that I want, and it's decently healthy, and it's probably going to taste good, or depending on what restaurant you're at. So you can actually see what you're eating before you get it. Now, a totally different topic, not totally different topic, but a totally different mindset is, if you go to a restaurant and you're really wanting to try something that you've never tried before, then don't necessarily worry about like, hey, this has to be super healthy for me. If you want to have an experience of like indulging in like the best beef brisket you've ever had in your life, and maybe it has some toppings on there. It's like nacho cheese and all this other stuff. And maybe it's brisket nachos or something. That's not your normal diet, or that's not my normal diet. But if I've eaten really healthy throughout the week and I'm like, man, I'm gonna go try this, I'm gonna indulge in something and I'm gonna have it. Now, like I said, depending on what your goals are, then it's up to you. But like I've said before, I like to have good eating experience, and I think it's fun to try new things. So I like to eat healthy for the majority of the time, so that I can go try things that might not be the healthiest for my body, so that I can have that experience. Because I think it's so fun to try new foods and new experiences with friends, family, loved ones, because it actually does like have a really impact on your mind and body if you do those things with people, because you're gonna be like, man, you remember when we went to that place? So good, that type of thing. And then some people might have like restaurants that they go to all the time. But what I'll say is try to cook for yourself as much as possible, especially if you don't make a lot of money like myself in this current state, and go to the grocery store, get your groceries, bring them, cook them, do all those things so that when you do eat out, you don't feel as bad, or you can indulge. And there's that. But there's just, I like diving into this stuff because I think it's a psychological thing more than anything. I'll tell you a story. Back in the day when I was trying to train for rugby and I was like trying to reach the highest level of rugby I could, I would eat so strict during the week. I would eat like, or at least what I thought was super strict. And then on the weekend, I would give myself like one day where I could eat anything. There were times where I went so hard, where I went so hard. I would eat so much, I threw up. And I don't think that's not a super healthy way to live a life, because I was feeling like I was depriving myself, and then I felt like I had to like indulge so much because I didn't know the next time I was going to get to do that. So one thing I will say is it's a balance of letting yourself indulge and then also being strict with good foods that are going to be healthy for you, because a lot of times food is an emotional thing. It's a psychological thing. It's good. Good food can be really good for our bodies and help us perform. So food is so important. And I think having a good relationship with food is thoroughly important, because there's so many eating disorders. There's so many negative connotations with eating too much, eating too little, all these things. So figuring that over time has taken me a long time. But like, I know like 10 years ago, or maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I was going through like ebbs and flows. So that's it. I'll cut it off there. But if you have any questions, I would love to, leave them in the comments. Tell me if there's any strategies you have when it comes to trying to eat a good diet during the week, and then what's your approach on the weekend, or if you're going to go out to a restaurant, what's your approach? And it also depends on what restaurant you're going to. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, and get after it.